Hello and welcome to this time a different type of Dragoon optimization video. Today, instead of making a guide, I'm going to look back at an old fight, in this case P8S, and talk about some opti in that fight that I otherwise would not really get to explain, that I think is really interesting and could teach you some different stuff. So starting off, I would like to talk about the various lengths of uptime and downtime in this fight. Starting the fight, we have approximately 1 minute and 58 seconds of uptime. Keep in mind that the times shown on the right have a variance of about 100 milliseconds, so they're not always going to be the exact same. After that, we have 41.3 seconds of downtime, then 2 minutes 52 seconds of uptime, then 42.1 seconds of downtime, and then after this downtime, for the entire rest of the fight, the boss stays targetable. However, after about 18 seconds of uptime, the boss will start a cutscene where he does not go untargetable and keeps taking damage still, but because you're in a cutscene, you cannot do anything with your character, you cannot use any actions. And then after the cutscene, there's another about 1 minute and 43 seconds until you enrage, which isn't really relevant for this video, but still. So starting with the initial 1 minute and 58 seconds of uptime. The first decision you have to make in a fight is what opener you're going to use. On Dragoon, by default, we have two different openers we can pick from. The standard opener and a first GCD Lance Charge opener. The point of the first GCD Lance Charge opener is that by making your opener worse by about 23 potency, you will gain better alignment for your future windows, and by your 60-second window, you will be ahead by 33 potency. However, in this fight, since at 2 minutes there's a downtime that lasts for long enough to reset all of our cooldowns, instead of having to do a first GCD Lance Charge opener where we essentially gimp our opener, we can instead drift our 60-second window to about 1 minute and 24 seconds, where we can not only get a better 60-second window than the first GCD Lance Charge would have given us, but we can also have a better opener alongside it. Instead of simply following the standard opener, you can shuffle around your OGCDs to look like this. This way all the alignment in the phase is done for you. Your 60-second window will then look something like this. It's basically the exact same as the first GCD Lance Charge window, but Lance Charge is delayed for 10 GCDs, which of course means that you did 2 GCD cycles, so it's back to being the exact same thing. However, the difference is that the delay allows us to hold our Mirage Dive from our high jump to now fit a second Mirage Dive into the exact same burst window. After this, you finish with one more Heaven's Thrust combo, and then the boss goes untargetable for a downtime mechanic. Before we talk about what happens after the downtime, there's still a bit more to say about what happens before the downtime. So this is going to be one of the most complicated, well, somewhat complicated, and also one of my favorite pieces of optimization in this entire expansion. It is very niche, basically one of a kind opti. So if we go back to the 60-second window from before, we can change that 60-second window to instead look like this. Now at first it might be hard to even see what changed about it. The difference is that instead of doing Chaotic Spring, Heaven's Thrust, Chaotic Spring, you will now do Chaotic Spring, Heaven's Thrust. So you do 2 CS, and then you're going to do 2 Heaven's Thrust after. Before I explain how this can actually be a potency gain, I want to talk about the fact that dots in this game all tick at 3-second intervals. So targeted dots will all tick together, every dot on the boss, at a 3-second interval. And that timer does not change throughout the fight. So if the first tick happens at 1 second, the second tick is going to happen at 4 seconds, then 7 seconds. The first tick is at 2 seconds, then 5 seconds, 8 seconds, whatever. It's always 3 seconds and it stays that way for the entire instance. So how this is a gain, as you can see in this picture here, basically what you're changing is that your first Chaotic Spring that you do while in this window is going to have 8 ticks, because every 24 second, every full duration Chaotic Spring is going to have 8 ticks, because 24 divided by 3 is 8. And then your second chaotic spring is going to have 4 ticks because the boss goes away too soon after using it, which means that your unbuffed chaotic spring has 8 ticks and your buffed by lance charge chaotic spring has 4 ticks. If you swap your 2 combos in the middle around, your unbuffed chaotic spring now gets 4 ticks, and then it gets refreshed early by a buffed chaotic spring, which gets 8 ticks instead, meaning that you gained 4 buffed chaotic spring ticks. But this is not always going to be a gain, and you need to use a dot tracker if you wanted to do this efficiently. So as you can see here, this is like the rule of thumb, is that if the first tick happens between 0 seconds and 1 second, you're going to do your regular rotation. I'll tell you why in a moment, but it might be obvious. If the first tick is between 1 second and 3 seconds, you do a double chaotic spring and a double heaven's thrust at the end. So here you can see every alignment of dot ticks that can happen. So the reason why if the first tick happens between 0 seconds and 1 second is that if you do a double chaotic spring, your second chaotic spring that is going to apply sooner than it normally would now is going to apply at just past 1 minute and 33 seconds, which means it's going to expire at just past 1 minute and 57 seconds. As we've talked about, the boss goes untargetable at 1 minute and 58 and like a bit extra, like 58.5 on average. So that means that there's about a second, maybe a little bit more generally, of downtime on your dot if you do the double. The only time this is going to lose you a tick, a 5th tick of your final CS, is in the first example. If the first tick happens between 0 and 1 second, you will lose a tick at the end by doing a double CS. So instead you just get 5 buff ticks instead. Now the second outcome is that the first tick happened between 1 second and 2.5 seconds. This is basically the normal thing that we've been talking about. You just replace them, you're not losing a tick, you're not gaining any ticks, it's just you swap 8 unbuffed ticks for 8 buff ticks. And then the final example is actually the coolest one, is that if your first tick happens late, between 2.5 seconds and 3 seconds, what happens is that normally between your 2 chaotic spring applications, you will have a downtime of 1 second, right? Because 2 GCD loops take 25 seconds. 1 GCD loop is 12.5 seconds, and then 12.5 again. So there's 25 seconds between applying chaotic spring normally. If you reapply it like this, you do a double, the 1 second of downtime on the dot disappears, and sure, it appears again at the end of the fight. But the important thing here is that you move basically the 1 second of downtime on your dot, which means you actually gain an earlier tick. The first chaotic spring here in the picture becomes a 5 tick, and then the buffed one still has 8 ticks. So this is the best case scenario essentially for what you can control, and it's pretty cool. So now we're gonna talk about what actually comes after the downtime then. After this downtime will be the last and preferred time to use your first potion. Whether you can use your potion here or have to use it sooner depends on what your party does at the end of the fight. If your party is holding buffs until after the cutscene at the end and then immediately bursting after, your potion won't be up yet. But if you are doing delayed 2 minutes there to like 7 minutes or so, then you can use your potion here. If you have to use it sooner, then the best time for yourself to use it would be before the chaotic spring on your 60-second window. The best time for your party to use it is just standard opener after your true thrust. Besides that, you mostly start with a standard reopener here. You want to do second GCD lance charge instead of first GCD because your Wormwind alignment is flipped from what it would usually be. So second GCD lance charge is going to make all 3 of your lance charge windows better, although the third one, which is in your 2 minutes again, is somewhat of a forced triple wave preferably of lance charge, dragon sight, and Wormwind thrust. If you can't do that, it does become better to do first GCD lance charge, but that also depends on if you're podding or not. If you're gonna pod here, you should always do second GCD lance charge, and at worst, You'll just have to use the Wormwind before your buffs. But that's about everything for this phase. The last thing that's interesting about this fight that I want to talk about in this video is that after the second downtime mechanic, before the cutscene, you will do 2 Chaotic Spring combos, followed with a 3rd Chaotic Spring combo afterwards. This is kind of weird and unintuitive at first, but actually makes a lot of sense. So the first one is logical. You use your first Chaotic Spring combo to get Power Surge and to put up your dot. The second one is basically for both those reasons again. So keep in mind, as I said at the start of the video, that during the cutscene, which happens after your 8th GCD, which is going to be your second Chaotic Spring, you can no longer move your character. You can't do anything with your character anymore. You can't hit the boss, but you can still you can still deal damage to the boss. So your dot will still tick multiple times throughout the cutscene. On top of that, your combo carries over after the cutscene because the cutscene is short enough for that. It's 16 seconds, meaning that your Power Surge from your Disembowel that you do as your second last GCD will also carry over this way. The minimum value you gain from that Power Surge, because you will be able to, your first at least 4 GCDs are going to be unbuffed from Power Surge if you don't do this, meaning that the 4th hit, 5th hit, Raiden, and Disembowel would all not have Power Surge. Most likely there's also going to be some combination of Nostrand, High Jump. Well, Nostrand will basically always be there, High Jump will basically always be there, Gears Kogel will basically always be there, Mirage Dive doesn't have to be there. So if we look at the potency that you would definitely be gaining from having Power Surge up already at the start of this point, is you get a 10% on your 4th hit, which is 300 potency, so you get 30 potency from that. You get a 10% of your Nostrand, which is 360 potency, you get 10% of that. So it's 30. I'm just going to count up the rest. 36, High Jump is 40, so you go from 66 to 104. Then you get another 40 from your 5th hit, so you go to 144. Then you get 26 from your Gears Kogel, which puts you at 130. And then you get 28 from your Raiden Thrust, which puts you at 158. And then you get 25 from Disembowel, which puts you at 183, I believe. I might have messed up, I'm not sure, but something like that. And then you also get a minimum of 3 autos worth of Power Surge as well, which is about like 27 potency. So that's over 200 potency that you're getting just from having that Power Surge up already. And then on top of that, even though you're refreshing your Chaotic Spring early, the second Chaotic Spring, if you started the window with Lance Charge already up, which is the most common thing, it's still going to be in Lance Charge, so you're not losing buff ticks, and you're gaining 4 ticks still extra during the cutscene. 4 ticks is 4 times 45 potency with buffs. You have 2 10%, but 4 times 45 is 180. And then this is once again over 200 potency. So this is why you do 2 Chaotic Spring before the cutscene, and then of course after the cutscene you need to once again refresh your Power Surge, and once again refresh your Chaotic Spring, which is why you do a 3rd Chaotic Spring. But it's pretty funny that you do 3 Chaotic Spring in a row on a full uptime, like single target fight. So yeah, that's basically everything for this video. I could have talked about more stuff, like doing a delayed opener with your group, with like moving your opener buffs to about 30 seconds, which would be a gain for yourself. But I'm not very interested in opti that revolves around other people instead of just stuff you can do on your own in any party. I do plan on making more videos like this. I wanted to do this one first because I think the dot tick thing in the first phase is just really cool. And I don't really want to make guides at the moment for like quote-unquote Kieran fights, because Kieran fights is essentially just P9 through P12, and then maybe the 2 ultimates still for this expansion. I don't really care about this Savage tier at all. I might make a video on P9S, but that's about it. And I don't really have motivation to do anything for the ultimates at this point. So yeah, thank you for watching. If you liked it, please let me know. If you have anything you'd want to see, you can also request that. And I'll see you next time.